In the aftermath of Gaddafi's fall, local militants raided his massive weapons stockpiles, sparking violent turf wars across Libya. As a result, Benghazi quickly became one of the most dangerous places in the world. Because of the chaos, nearly every international embassy shut down. The only exceptions were a small U.S. diplomatic outpost and a nearby CIA annex in Benghazi, both protected by a private security team known as the GRS. Not long after, Jack Silva, one of the GRS operators, arrives in Benghazi. At the airport, he's greeted by Tyrone Roan Woods, the team leader and an old friend. After a quick reunion, the two head back to the CIA annex. But on the way, they suddenly witness a shooting and are soon surrounded by armed local militants. Roan immediately radios the base for backup, but CIA Chief Bob refuses to send help, making it clear that his men are not allowed to leave the compound. The militants demand that Jack and Roan open their vehicles for inspection, but Roan stands his ground. He warns them that if they lay a hand on them, drone strikes will rain down on their position. The bluff works, and the militants reluctantly let them go. Once they arrive at the CIA annex, Roan angrily confronts Chief Bob for refusing to send support. But Bob brushes him off, insisting that he doesn't want the GRS stirring up trouble or creating an international incident. In his eyes, they're just hired guns, not actual CIA personnel. After the tense exchange, Jack meets the rest of the GRS team, Geist, Tonto, Tig, and Boone, the men who will soon become his new brothers in arms. As he gets familiar with the compound, he's warned to always stay armed. Later, alone in his room, Jack thinks about his wife Becky, who never wanted him to take this mission in the first place. Not long after, Jack is called in to meet Chief Bob himself. Bob makes it clear that he never wanted the GRS there at all, the government forced them on him. He repeats that he doesn't want them provoking the locals or getting in the way of what he calls his brilliant CIA staff. Later that day, Roan gathers the team and briefs them on an upcoming meeting. Two CIA officers, Boehner and Giuliani, are scheduled to meet with a Libyan oil executive whom Giuliani has been cultivating for months. For security, Jack is assigned to pose as Giuliani's husband, something he's clearly not thrilled about, especially since Giuliani isn't exactly warm or friendly. At first, the meeting seems routine. But while monitoring the area, the GRS team quickly realizes they're being watched. Sensing danger, Roan decides to shut the whole thing down immediately. The moment Jack gets the signal, he grabs Giuliani and Boehner and rushes them back to the car. The CIA officers are furious at first, but their anger disappears the second they realize another vehicle is tailing them. A high-speed chase follows through the streets of Benghazi. In the end, Roan manages to shake the pursuers by forcing their car to lose control and slam into a nearby forklift, giving the team just enough time to escape. Right after, he joins a call with Glenn "Bub" Doherty, the GRS commander based in Tripoli. Glenn informs them that U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens will be arriving in Benghazi on Monday and staying at the special mission compound with only a small security detail. After the briefing, the team heads over to the special mission compound to check it out for themselves. Once inside, they meet Scott Wickland and Dave Ubben, the DSS agents assigned to guard the compound. But after looking around, the GRS team is deeply concerned. The DSS agents are under-equipped, and the compound itself is dangerously exposed. If a large force ever attacked it, the place wouldn't stand a chance. Even so, before leaving, Roan tells the DSS agents that if anything goes wrong, the GRS team will be just 1 mile away at the CIA annex, and they'll come running. All the GRS has to do is call for help, and they'll come fast. On Monday, the GRS team, along with their local translator Amal, meets with a group of tense local militants. To keep things calm, they use the Ombo hand gesture as a sign of peace before buying weapons from them. The real goal isn't the weapons themselves, it's to track the truck and identify the supplier behind it. Later, Ambassador Stevens meets with the team and explains that building peace with the Libyans is crucial for the country's democratic future. Most of the team listens closely, but Tonto ends up falling asleep during the briefing. Chief Bob confronts him afterward and warns him that if he doesn't start acting like a professional, he'll be sent home. Not long after, the GRS escorts Ambassador Stevens to a meeting with Benghazi's mayor. But the team is alarmed when unauthorized journalists suddenly show up to cover the event. Even so, the ambassador gives his speech, and thankfully, the meeting ends without any trouble. Later that day, the GRS tells the DSS agents they got lucky this time. After that, the DSS introduces them to Sean Smith, a surveillance specialist who's setting up equipment around the compound. The following day begins like any other, except it also marks the 11th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. While the base goes about its normal routine, Ambassador Stevens grows increasingly uneasy after noticing local Libyans watching the compound from a distance. At the same time, the GRS operators spend a little time talking with their families back home. During one of those calls, Jack learns that Becky is pregnant, giving him one rare bright moment in an otherwise tense day. For most of the afternoon, nothing unusual happens. But as evening falls, armed militants begin gathering outside the special mission compound. Then, right at sundown, they launch a full-scale attack using rifles and mortars. The assault catches the ambassador and the DSS agents completely off guard. Militants break into the compound and open fire on anyone they see. As the attack spirals out of control, Scott Wickland retreats with Ambassador Stevens and Sean Smith into a safe room. Back at the CIA annex, the GRS sees the attack unfolding and immediately starts gearing up to help. But Chief Bob still refuses to let them move, insisting that the local militia February 17th should handle it instead. He argues that the GRS has no authority in that area and should only be used as a last resort. Meanwhile, Glenn Doherty, already aware of the crisis, starts trying to get a plane into Benghazi. At the compound, the militants begin closing in on the safe room. Back at the annex, as Tonto works with Amal to coordinate with February 17th, Chief Bob again orders Roan to stand down. At the same time, Geist races to pull Giuliani out of another meeting as the attack spreads through the city. News of the assault has also reached the United States, while back in Benghazi, the GRS can do nothing but wait in frustration for permission to move. While they're stuck waiting, the militants set the compound on fire with Wickland, Stevens, and Smith still trapped inside the safe room. After seeing the flames and hearing desperate calls for help, Chief Bob finally gives in. The GRS wastes no time and speeds toward the compound. But on the way, they run into a militant roadblock. Before Amal can talk their way through it, a rival militant group suddenly shows up, and the two sides erupt into a gunfight. Back at the annex, Geist arrives with Giuliani and tells Chief Bob to lock the base down before rushing out again to join the fight. At the same time, Roan and the rest of the team finally reach the compound and begin fighting alongside February 17th. They cut down militants one after another, all while being stunned by how casually the locals seem to treat the chaos around them. Eventually, they push their way inside and find Wickland, who managed to escape the burning building, but without Stevens or Smith. That leaves the GRS no choice but to rush into the fire themselves to search for the missing men. Another wave of militants crashes into the compound, forcing them into yet another brutal firefight. After holding them off, the GRS loads the remaining DSS agents into a vehicle and prepares to escape. Once everyone is back at the base, Chief Bob demands that they make a run for the airport after learning the ambassador is still missing. But Roan immediately shuts that down, saying it's far too dangerous. Instead, he orders the chief to call for help. Not long after, Glenn Doherty arrives in Benghazi and heads straight for the annex. Inside the base, the CIA officers start destroying sensitive records while preparing to evacuate. At the same time, the GRS braces for another assault, knowing the militants now have them pinned down. A local ally warns them to shut off all the lights, because leaving them on will make the annex an easy target. Not long after, the team realizes militants are closing in from every direction. They take their positions and prepare for the next attack. And when the enemy finally gets close enough, they start throwing grenades into the compound. The grenades exploding inside the compound trigger yet another fierce gunfight. Despite being heavily outnumbered, the defenders manage to push the militants back without suffering any casualties, a rare victory in an otherwise brutal night. Meanwhile, Glenn finally arrives in Benghazi. But instead of heading straight to the CIA annex, he gets stuck dealing with local generals who are arguing over payment before agreeing to transport him to the base. Back at the annex, Chief receives word that Ambassador Stevens may have been located at a local hospital. At the same time, Giuliani brings food to Geist, who is standing watch on a rooftop. When he asks whether help is coming from the United States, she admits that it's unlikely. Geist tells her to keep contacting anyone she can, just in case. Elsewhere, Tonto urges Amal to leave the annex and get somewhere safe. But Amal refuses. He believes he is just as committed to this fight as everyone else. As the night drags on, Jack shares a troubling thought. If Ambassador Stevens is still alive, Glenn may reach him before they do. But before anyone can discuss it further, they notice another large group of militants moving toward the compound. Minutes later, the next assault begins. After a prolonged firefight, the attack finally dies down. Once again, the defenders are left waiting in silence, knowing another wave could come at any moment. Glenn and his convoy are finally approaching the annex. But the relief is short-lived when they also learn that Ambassador Stevens has been confirmed dead at the hospital. The news hits everyone hard. Knowing the worst may still be ahead, the men prepare for another attack while silently accepting that some of them may not survive the night. Eventually, Glenn arrives with additional personnel and several Libyan soldiers. His arrival immediately boosts morale. For the first time in hours, the defenders feel like they might actually make it out alive. But moments after he leaves, disaster strikes. The compound suddenly comes under a devastating mortar attack. One round lands nearby and severely injures Geist. Seconds later, another mortar crashes down and kills Roan as he rushes to help his wounded teammate. Geist's arm is left horribly mangled, while DSS agent Dave Ubbins suffers a badly broken leg. The loss of Roan crushes the team. As Tig prays over his fallen friend's body, Jack stands nearby, overwhelmed with grief. Inside the annex, medics desperately work on Geist and Ubbin as everyone struggles to process what just happened. Then things get even worse. The defenders spot another large force of armed Libyans approaching the compound. Believing this is the final attack, everyone prepares for one last stand. Tonto even vows to keep fighting until the very end. But as the group draws closer, something unexpected happens. The approaching Libyans raise their hands and display the jambo, a friendly gesture used by their allies. That's when Tonto realizes they aren't enemies. They're reinforcements. After hours of non-stop fighting, fear, and loss, the realization overwhelms him. He breaks down in tears of relief. Soon after, the GRS team, DSS agents, and CIA personnel finally begin evacuating the annex. As the convoy prepares to leave, Tonto invites Amal to come with them. But Amal declines. He apologizes for everything that happened and for the actions of his fellow countrymen. After the Americans depart, local Libyans enter the compound to recover their dead. The survivors arrive safely at the airport and board evacuation aircraft. Giuliani and Chief personally thank Jack and the rest of the GRS team for saving their lives. Nearby, Tonto hands the keys to their vehicles over to members of February 17th, who happily drive off with them. As they wait to leave Libya, the surviving operators reflect on the attack. Many believe it was far too organized to have been spontaneous and suspect that it had been planned long before that night. Still, they remain grateful for one thing above all else: they had each other. At this point in the story, everything turns into pure chaos and survival. What started as a security mission turns into a non-stop fight just to stay alive through the night. The most intense part is how the team keeps pushing forward even after losing key people and running out of support. There's no backup coming fast enough, no easy escape, and every decision could mean life or death. It really shows how quickly a controlled situation can collapse when everything goes wrong at once. In the middle of all that, the only thing holding them together is trust in each other and pure instinct to survive.